Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I tried to call one Govinda Prabhu and Prabhu phone is switched off, so not able to reach him. So I will be changing the. Topic is same. Srimad Bhagavatam 5:12:9. But speaker will change. I will be playing from the YouTube. Hare Krishna. Just 1 minute.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Gopijana Vallabha Giri.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. We welcome all of you for the today's morning program, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And today we'll be hearing from His Grace Shankar Pandit Prabhu, and it is topic is Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 12th chapter, and the sloka 9. Hare Krishna. So everyone of you is aware, I think Prabhu is from the Pune, and Prabhu has given a class in our temple also.
Varadhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Shabad Paramahamsa Purvacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Sevaya Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस परिवृतचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद शिवायन गिरीश भक्त सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद भागवतम की जय। ऑल गुरु से समर डिवोटीज हरे कृष्ण। ऑल गुरु से समर डिवोटीज हरे कृष्ण। ऑल गुरु से समर डिवोटीज हरे कृष्ण। ऑल गुरुस टू श्री श्री गुरु एंड गौरंगा गौर हरि हरि। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 12. Canto 5, Chapter 12, entitled Raguna Converses with Jadabharat. Text number 9. We can at least begin reading till the time it comes up. Evam Niruktam Kshitishabdavrittam Asan Nidhanat Paramanavo ye Avidyaya Manasa Kalpitas Te Yesham Samuhena Krito Vishesha. Evam niruktam shritishabdavrittam asannidhanat paramanavo ye avidyaya manasa kalpitaste yesham samuhena krito vishesha. Evam niruktam shritishabdavrittam asannidhanat paramanavo ye avidyaya manasa kalpitaste yesham samuhena krito vishesha. Evam niruktam shritishabdavrittam asannidhanat paramanavo ye avidyaya manasa kalpitaste yesham samuhena krito vishesha. Evam niruktam kshitishabdavrittam asannidhanat paramanavo ye avidyaya manasa kalpitaste yesham samuhena krito vishesha. Evam niruktam kshitishabdavrittam asannidhanat paramanavo ye avidyaya manasa kalpitaste yesham samuhena krito vishesha. Matajis. Evam niruktam kshitishabdavrittam असन्निधानात् परमाणवो ये अविद्यया मनसा कल्पितास्ते येषां समूहेन कृतो विशेषा एवं thus niruktam falsely described kshiti shabdam of the word earth, vrittam the existence, asat not real, nidhanat from the dissolution, parama anavo atomic particles, ye all of which, avidyaya because of less intelligence, manasa in the mind, kalpita imagined, they, yesham of which, samuhena by the aggregate, krita made, vishesha the particulars. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. One may say that varieties arise from the planet Earth itself. However, although the universe may temporarily appear to be the truth, it ultimately has no real existence. The Earth was originally created by a combination of atomic particles, but these particles are impermanent. Actually, the atom is not the cause of the universe, although some philosophers think so. It is not a fact that the varieties found in this material world simply result from atomic juxtaposition or combination. Purport. Those who follow the atomic theory think that the protons and electrons of atoms combine in such a way as to bring all material existence into being. However, the scientists fail to discover the cause of atomic existence itself. Under these circumstances, we cannot accept that the atom is the cause of the universe. Such theories are advanced by unintelligent people. According to real intelligence, the real cause of the cosmic manifestation is the Supreme Lord, Janmadhyasya. He is the original cause of all creation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. Krishna is the original cause, sarva karana karanam. He is the cause of all causes. Krishna is the cause of atoms, the material energy. Bhumirapo nalo vayu khammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritir ashtadha. The ultimate cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and only those in ignorance try to find out other causes by posing different theories. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Shwapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Utapadakkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Nitinamine Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Chatatmatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikakanta Radhakanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Seeking the blessings of all assembled Vaishnavas and maybe some online Vaishnavas as well to speak on this glorious subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very philosophical section is going on. We'll see a brief recap, and particularly of this chapter, we'll try to understand how a preacher relishes to repeat the message of the absolute truth. We'll discuss also about a little bit about atomic theory. That's what the translation and purport talks about. And of course, more of how science begins at an intermediate point. So basically, the flaw of beginning at an intermediate point. And of course, at the end, we can also see the Vedic paradigm or the Vedic perspective, which is the actual truth, the Vedic facts. So I'll just read the translation again. One may say that varieties arise from the planet Earth itself. However, although the universe may temporarily appear to be the truth, it ultimately has no real existence. The Earth was originally created by a combination of atomic particles, but these particles are impermanent. Actually, the atom is not the cause of the universe, although some philosophers think so. It is not a fact that the varieties found in this material world simply result from atomic juxtaposition or combination. So this verse is evam niruktam, evam, thus. That means it's almost like a conclusion. The next verse also starts with evam, thus again. So in this case it is evam niruktam, thus it is falsely described. So it is more about in terms of how scientists talk about the atomic theory, how scientists talk about how everything has come from the atoms. So basically, this is Rahuguna, Jadabharat speaking to King Rahuguna. Jadabharat is a self-realized soul. Rahuguna, as the king, he was being carried by the 4 palanquin carriers, and Jadabharat happens to be one of them. He basically acted as dull, deaf, dumb, so that he wanted to avoid distractions of this material world. And as he happened to carry the palanquin, there's a very beautiful consciousness we can reflect, and it's an irony. He was thinking, just by carrying the palanquin, I am reducing the reactions of my previous sinful activities. So a conditioned soul, a common man may ask, why am I suffering? But that is usually a complaint. When a person becomes a little more mature, then he asks it philosophically, why am I suffering? He's actually trying to inquire, what is the cause of my suffering? But self-realized souls or much more advanced Vaishnavas think that whatever suffering I'm going through, it is only reducing the reactions of my sinful activities, previous activities. So which basically means even when the person is going through difficulty, he is still grateful. And when a person is grateful, he is always happy. So even in difficulties, that's how he becomes, he chooses to become happy by seeing with different perspectives. So that's a very beautiful consciousness that Jadabharat exhibited. And as a result of which, Rahuguna, when he got a glimpse of that Jadabharat is not one of the ordinary palanquin carriers as the others, he understood. Immediately he comes down, falls flat at the lotus feet of Jadabharat. So we can see actually like how Bhagavad Gita explains, Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So pranipat is there, he falls flat. Pariprashna, he begins to inquire. Very assertive he speaks, because he has some clarifications. He talks about how if a milk and rice is kept in the pot when it is heated, then naturally the milk and rice also get the effect of the heat. It's not that only the pot gets heated. So trying to explain that, since the soul is within the body, the soul also gets affected, when the body is going through a lot of changes, a lot of difficulties around, external difficulties. To which, of course, the scriptures and Rahuguna and Jadabharat and, of course, Srila Prabhupada clarifies that to the degree we attach ourselves, to the degree we identify ourselves with the body, to that degree one gets the suffering. The owner of the car is different from the car. When the car gets damaged, the owner feels more pain than the car. To the degree one identifies with the car. But when he knows that he is aloof, then there is, of course, that's a self-realized stage, which doesn't happen overnight. But nevertheless, it's to the degree one identifies, to that degree one feels the pain. So he's asking questions, he's falling flat. The only thing he has not yet done till now, or we can say it's a reverse, rather than rendering service to Jadabharat, he has already taken service from Jadabharat. So he's yet to do that, but that's how the situation was. And in the previous chapter, Jadabharat begins to answer or respond to Rahuguna's questions. And just like Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter Bhagavad Gita, Krishna doesn't begin to speak at all. Let's Arjuna ask the questions. And then second chapter, Krishna begins to speak. And that beginning is beginning with a chastisement. Asochanano sochastam pragnayavadam shavasas. You're speaking like learned words. You're as if you're learned Pandit, but still you're mourning for that which is not worth. Similarly here, he begins with chastising begins with chastising Rahuguna. And the whole previous chapter talks about instructions. It's instructions of Jadabharat about the mind, about the power and the nature of mind. Very beautiful descriptions are there. And towards the end, Prabhupada, and throughout the chapter, Prabhupada gives tips in terms of to deal with the mind, or the tips for dealing with the mind. One of the powerful tips is neglect. Neglect the mind. And of course, the last verse which mentions about Guror Harer Charana Upasana Astra, the weapon of service to spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Guru Harer Charana Upasana Astra. This is a very powerful tool for the mind to be engaged and to be positively engaged, and rather than being afraid of how to deal with the mind will be actually a friend when one actually renders service to the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this particular chapter, Rahuguna is asking, can you please repeat the instructions? So an entire chapter is discussed about the mind, and now Rahuguna is asking, can you please repeat so that it becomes simplified to understand? So sometimes a student may hesitate to ask the teacher, can you repeat? For the fear that the teacher may become angry. Whole chapter I spoke, and where were you? Mentally absent, and now you are suddenly asking, can you please repeat it again? But a genuine teacher is more concerned about the message being understood. Jai Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Bhagwan ki jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maiya ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A genuine teacher is more concerned about the message being understood by the student rather than simply delivering the content. A genuine teacher or a genuine preacher. So rather than being disturbed about it, a genuine preacher loves to or relishes to repeat, so that the subject matter is properly understood. When the subject matter is properly understood, there will be a proper transformation happening in the hearer, which is what the preacher or a genuine teacher is concerned about. Not the fact that it's wasting my time, or why were you not attentive when it was spoken earlier. But a person is very the genuine teacher is very religious in terms of repeating the message. Even throughout at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, after speaking different yogas, 18 chapters, it's quite philosophical rendition. And at the end of it, Lord Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that, do you want me to repeat this? He's ready. And when Arjuna says, I have understood everything, and the illusion is dispelled and all, that's wonderful. But Krishna from his side was ready to repeat. Once Srila Prabhupada was giving a katha, there was a series of lectures. He was speaking about Lord Chaitanya. It was about 10 days, katha was over. And on the 10th day, one young boy, maybe a hippie, whatever, those early days of Krishna consciousness. So at the end of the 10th day, he raises his hand and says, Swamiji, I have a question. He says, who is Lord Chaitanya? So somebody may feel it's like at the end of Ramayana, somebody asks, who is Ram? How will it feel? So Prabhupada says, very intelligent question. And then he gets an opportunity to speak more about Lord Chaitanya. Who is Lord Chaitanya? So one perspective is one may get disturbed, and another perspective is one sees it as an opportunity to preach or to make the student understand the message thoroughly. The genuine preacher is more concerned about that. Of course, as long as the inquiry is genuine, not that somebody only wants to pull the leg, simply repeat. Once it is said, we heard that once Maharaj had gone to the hospital where Jananivas Prabhu was not well for some time, and morning only he had given a festival lecture. And Maharaj in his own mood went for about 4 hours, a festival lecture of 4 hours. And also later on at another time, evening or some day, he went to the hospital to meet His Grace Jananivas Prabhu to inquire about his health. So Jananivas Prabhu requested, can you please repeat what you spoke? So he began to speak, and he almost repeated 4 hours of that lecture, what he had given, what he had delivered earlier. We might feel that we can summarize it, we can comprise it and give maybe 3 points, summarized points, or maybe give some points which the person has not heard earlier, some pastimes which they have not heard earlier. But here Maharaj is just repeating properly, like sort of verbatim, because they relish to speak this message. So genuine preacher relishes to repeat. And here what we find is Jadabharat is beginning to respond, and throughout the next chapters also we'll find, toward the next and all will come, forest of material enjoyment and all that. So where it tries to give in a simplified manner with analogies, much more easier to understand, and particularly animal analogies, much more easier. People's ears are very attentive. So that's how he begins to explain, sort of begins to repeat the message again. So Jadabharat is analyzing the palanquin carriers, the palanquin and the palanquin passenger in the form of Rahuguna. He's analyzing everybody, how Rahuguna is. And in the previous verse we saw about in terms of how everything is a transformation of the earth, and from dust we come and we enter into dust. So it talks about the temporary nature of this material world. We just simply come from the dust and we enter into the dust again. So this particular purport is quite sort of scientific. It talks about the atomic theory, talks about how evam niruktam, thus falsely described, that everything comes from atoms. That means what? From the perspective of science, they are trying to determine it in terms of breaking it into smaller particles, and what is that smallest particle, so which as per them is atoms, which of course keeps changing, over a period of time, over generations and all that, but nevertheless atoms, which of course, protons, neutrons, electrons, those kind of atomic theory. So everything comes from atom. So from science, if you talk from the science perspective, they generally talk about a Big Bang theory and a steady state theory. So of course science should feel ashamed to say that Big Bang theory is scientific, because it's basically a hypothesis. It's basically coming out of the mind. When the spiritualists, when the Vedic perspectives, when the spiritualists talk about the Vedic perspective, that from Mahavishnu comes the universes when he breathes, and he enters into each of those universes, and from his navel, Lord Brahma comes, lotus comes, and on the top of which Lord Brahma comes. The scientists laugh at that, saying that it is, it's imaginary or it is mythology. But when they talk about it's a mass of matter, it's a huge mass of matter, and by its own gravitational force, it turns on, and suddenly, at a particular pressure, temperature, volume, it just explodes, a big bang, and that travels into the space, millions of miles, and after many, many years, it happens to form some elements, it happens to form some planets. This does not appear to be speculation. This does not appear to be, as they say, Rudyard Kipling's stories. This doesn't appear like that. But when we say about Mahavishnu's body, universes come out, and lotus is there from his navel, and Brahma is there, and he's the creator, that appears to be mythology. How can anyone say Big Bang theory is scientific from any angle? Similarly about steady state theory, it's like perennially creation is going on from a particular source. What is that source? No idea. But perennially it is going on. So it's like there are so many questions which they will not be able to answer, they will not be able to respond, but still such things pass on as scientific. Like Prabhupada used to talk about life comes from life. Particularly Damodar Swarup Maharaj, he would have a discussion, TD Singh, would have morning walks with Prabhupada, and so many discussions used to happen. So he would say that the so-called scientists, they say that life comes from chemicals, or life comes from matter, it comes from chemicals. So Prabhupada would say, where does a chemical come from? You just reverse that question, ask further. Ask further why or how. Just like now the scientists are saying, it is at atoms is the source. If you say atom is the source, then ask what is the source of atoms. Why do they stop their research at the atoms? And when you cannot explain what is the source of atoms, how do you expect us to simply believe that? So whether it is Big Bang theory or whether it's a steady state theory, we have to understand origin of, if you talk about creation, it cannot happen without the touch of a living force. Nowhere in the universe we see creation happening without the touch of a living force, a touch of a spiritual spark. It's not by dead matter. Even if we talk about, for the argument's sake, as they say, devil's advocate, even for the argument's sake, if we say that the atoms were existing, one, of course, they are not able to answer how did the atoms come in the first place, or who created those atoms. The second question is, how did they manage to mix in such a way that there is such wonderful order and harmony in the universe? You don't find planets having a accident in their journey, in wherever they are traveling, in their rotational and revolution. There's so much orderly, harmonious nature is there, which science is unable to explain. It's just haphazardly it happened. It's like saying if you apply some paint on the tail of the dog, and if the dog just rubs its tail on a easel, on a drawing paper, you can't expect a very fine, beautiful painting. What we can expect is some patches here and there. Probably modern art may say it may sell in crores. Why? Because you don't understand it. You have to see beyond. And the source may be, somebody must have just painted it like this. So if you don't understand it, just because you speak some scientific technical jargons, you can't pass. The common man may feel it's just some, if you don't understand, it must be something great. That's what a common man feels, because he doesn't want to make his image down in front of the people, scientists. If I say I don't understand, they'll feel he's a common man. And I don't want to express that I'm a common man. So many things just pass on like that. From common sense, one can understand. Even if we talk about mixing, it's like if somebody happens to be traveling and he happens to come across a palace, there's nobody there, there's no gatekeeper, and when you enter inside, it's on the dining table, everything is there in terms of the food ingredients, prasad is ready, everything is ready. So any common man with a common sense can understand that someone must have kept it, someone with hard work has prepared it. Even if we talk about mixing, it's like we may say in the kitchen there are so many ingredients. All those ingredients don't mix on their own, which eventually comes as prasad in our plate. Somebody puts efforts. Why is it that the same ingredients but different cooks have different taste? Isn't it? Same ingredients, but different cooks, when they mix, the ingredients are the ultimate item, or the prasadam is different with its different taste. So Mother Nature mixes. Mother Nature mixes the ingredients in such a fine manner by which we can see there is proper order, there is harmony from macroscopic to microscopic level. And for the ingredients to be provided, it is the Father, it is the Supreme Lord who provides those ingredients. If somebody neglects the Father, he is ungrateful. If somebody neglects the Father but accepts the Mother, he is partially ungrateful. Because the child sees only the mother is making, but he is not aware that the ingredients are provided by the Father. So in this case, how the universe, how the Father, the Supreme Father has provided for the ingredients. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, the source of material and spiritual worlds. And Mother Nature mixes. So if one is only conscious of Mother Nature, again Prabhupada would say, whose nature? Ask, whose nature? Again, if we stop only at that, it is again at intermediate point we are stopping. So we have to understand that origin of cosmos, or we talk about origin or creation, it cannot happen without the touch of a living force. And what to speak of trying to understand the origin of the cosmos? It is beyond our experience. Even if we have to find, if we have to find out if we have our ancestral property in our native place, and if we have to find out which mason, which carpenter actually built the house, how difficult it would going to be. Many of us may not know where is our ancestral property, and then find out who built it. And then if we talk about their ancestors and their ancestors, it can go on and on and on. How long we can track? How easy it is to trace? How easy is it for a small insect or an ant to come to the root of a banyan tree? What possibility is there? Sometimes he may be on the root, but he may not know that it is the root. Right? That's the position. How easy or difficult it is to find the root on our own, which is what the scientists are talking about in terms of inductive knowledge, research, doing research and trying to arrive at a particular consensus, or to arrive at the proper root cause. But we have to understand, as in the morning Prabhupada was told, that science actually starts at a intermediate point. Prabhupada said, yes, science starts at a intermediate point. It's like if a child is asked, where does milk come from? He'll say milk packets. And where does that come from? Grocery store. That is what is the understanding. The child is not able to relate that milk with the cow. Disconnected. Where does the vegetables come from? Supermarket. We are so disconnected. That's the effect of it. When we are disconnected from God, when we are disconnected from the root, our knowledge, what we have, is very distorted. So that is what we can understand. What is the flaw of starting at an intermediate point? Now, even as scientists say the root of everything is the atoms, what we can understand is they are starting at a intermediate point. Ask, what is the source of the atoms? Where did the atoms come from? So what is the flaw in starting at an intermediate point? First is one remains ignorant of the root cause. Basic. One remains ignorant of the root cause. It's like if somebody is in the third bogie of a train, the immediate cause is the second bogie. The second bogie is pulling. A remote cause is the first bogie. And then there is a ultimate cause, which is the engine. So simply by being in the second bogie, one concludes that the next bogie is the cause. That is incomplete. So basically one is ignorant of the root cause. More dangerous, more flaws. One may get distorted values or distorted understanding of what the actual picture is. Say as a small child, say two brothers, 5-year-old and 10-year-old. The 5-year-old comes and tells the mother, "Mother, my brother, elder brother bit me." And he shows his cheek, and he shows it's little bit reddish also. The mother gets angry. Mother gets angry and immediately goes and slaps the elder child. And then asks, "What happened? Why did you beat this? Why did you beat your younger one?" And then he says that, "Tomorrow I have an exam and I was making this beautiful painting. This, my younger brother comes and just takes a bucket of water and he just poured over it." So when only the younger brother goes and tells the mother, what does he say? "My elder brother bit me." Did he start with, "Actually I poured a bucket of water on the painting, he got angry, as a result of which he bit me and now my cheeks are red"? If he said like that, the situation would have been different. But how he starts? "My elder brother bit me." So similarly, if we start at atoms, where is the possibility of having gratitude for atoms? Because they are not sentient. And this is what the scientists typically want. Because one does not have to surrender to a sentient being. One doesn't have to be accountable. It just started on its own. There is no question of gratitude. So the third flaw we can see is one may sometimes give undue credit to a person beyond what he or she deserves. It's like, say, person A has prepared some food and he wants to deliver it to person C. He gives it to person B because he is not able to travel. And person B delivers it to person C with a smile. He says, he doesn't inform anything. So the person C understands, or what he safely assumes, person B has given me something. So it gives undue credit. So when we say everything has started from atoms, it's giving undue credit to the atoms, as if atoms are aham sarvasya Prabhu. Everything has come from. That's a wrong understanding. It's a incomplete understanding. It is giving undue credit to someone or something which does not deserve that credit. And finally, most dangerous flaw is that one actually remains ungrateful. As we just mentioned, where is the question of being grateful to atoms? There is no possibility of that. A 90-year-old European man in the recent times in this pandemic, he was sick and he had to be admitted to the hospital. And for one particular day, he was gasping for breath. So he needed the oxygen. So oxygen ventilators and all those things, oxygen concentrators, all those things were arranged. And eventually he got cured. So he was about to be discharged. When he was about to be discharged, he got the bill When he got the bill, he saw the bill, he started crying. The doctors felt that maybe he's not in a position to pay the bill. That is why he's crying. And then he says that this 90-year-old man says, for 1 day of oxygen, this is the bill I am receiving from the hospital. For 90 years of oxygen that I have been breathing, how much I am obligated to God. Hearing that, the doctor started crying. For 1 day there is such a fat bill. For 90 years what I have been breathing, how am I repaying it? How am I giving it back? So, where is the question of having gratitude to atoms? But when we understand the Vedic paradigm, it talks about there is a person. There is a person who loves, not just a person who is wanting to punish. A person who loves. Like Prabhupada says, the science, the flaw is that because it wants to experience everything within the senses. Within the sense perception, whatever I can gather. And particularly, wanting to see. But Prabhupada brushes it off very easily, saying it's Dr. Frog's philosophy. If Dr. Frog is in the well, what is his conception? What possibility he has to understand how big the ocean is? It's just not possible for him. Inductive knowledge. Which is why, as spiritualists, one learns a submissive attitude. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. A spiritual experimentalist learns a submissive attitude, and by approaching a bona fide authority, one acquires knowledge. And when one does that, he arrives at the proper conclusions, the root cause. Like Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the definition of the ultimate source. Srimad Bhagavatam begins Janmadiyasya yataha Anvayat itatarascha artheshu abhigya swarat tene brahmaridayadi kavaye muhyanti yat suraya. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the definition of the ultimate source. As Bhagavad Gita explains, aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Or Krishna says, bijam mam sarva bhutanam. Bijam mam sarva bhutanam. Or 14.4 he says, aham bija pradhapita sarva yonishu kaunteya. Right? Of all the living entities, aham bija pradhapita. I am the seed giving father of all the living entities. So with the Vedic paradigm, not only tells that God creates, which the scientists can stops at atoms. Not only tells that it's not the atoms, first of all it's an intermediate point. The Vedic paradigm not only tells that God has created, it also tells why God has created. It also tells how God has created. There is so much detail. It's not just saying, okay, instead of atoms it is God. What you call as atoms, we call as God. No, it's not as blunt as that. There is so much details available, right? It's not just God has created, it also tells why God has created and how God has created. As Mahavishnu, one of the creative potencies, of course, if you go beyond that, then ultimately it is Lord Krishna. From Krishna, Lord Balaram, and then the quadruple, and then again the Sankarshan. So much is there. Finally is Mahavishnu. Again, Vishnustu Trini Rupani. So from Mahavishnu's body, the universes are coming out. Like it is said, 45 lakh miles in diameter. 45 lakh miles in diameter. And then there is a covering. The first covering is 80 lakh miles in diameter. Like this, there are 7 layers. The first layer itself is just 80 lakhs, which is of earth, water, fire, air, ether, all the different coverings, layers which form 7 layers of coverings, 10 times of the preceding one, into 10. 80 lakhs again, into 10, into 10. We can keep calculating it. So 45 lakhs miles of diameter, then layer, first layer, second layer, third layer. And this we are talking about only one universe. Millions of universes. and then Mahavishnu enters Garbhodaksha Vishnu. From his navel comes lotus, then Lord Brahma, who acts as secondary creator of the universe, right? And then, Mother Nature, material nature facilitates, and so on and so forth. And of course, as Kshirodaksha Vishnu, he enters into each and every Paramanu, enters into every atom, and sometimes Prabhupada says, in between atoms. Everywhere. That means Vishnu. Vishnu means all pervading. There is no space where Vishnu is not there. All pervading. The word Vishnu is all pervading. So that's the beauty. The Vedic paradigm not only tells that God created, Vedic paradigm tells how God has created. And it also tells why God has created. For the unnatural desire of the living entities to fulfill and to reform. To fulfill that unnatural desire of wanting to be independent, and very important, to reform that unnatural desire which we had, which we are getting an opportunity here. So anyways, rather than focusing so much on the cause of the universe, if we spend more time in terms of how to improve the quality of our life, in terms of how to get out of the universe, that would be much more beneficial. Even at the end, even if, which is theoretically not possible, not possible, if somebody by inductive knowledge arrives at a particular root cause conclusion, still what? Still what? That's why aham sarvasa prabhava mattha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. One who is intelligent ends up worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So rather than worrying about the cause of the universe, we can ponder or meditate more about how to get out of the universe. And of course, one great opportunity is by worshipping the Lord of the universe in the form of Lord Jagannath, of whose mercifully we should get darshan tomorrow. And day after tomorrow, Rath Yatra will begin. So by having darshan of the Lord of the universe, that is much more beneficial, and pondering over in terms of how to improve our quality of life, rather than trying to get into this, as Prabhupada in the translation says, atomic juxtaposition or combination, and making the mind more complicated. One will benefit more by this. Hare Krishna. So we just saw in terms of Jadabharat's consciousness, very refined consciousness, in terms of considering that he is going through simply undergoing reactions of his past, and how Rahuguna asks very submissive questions. He is offering obeisances. He is more worried about not offending the Brahmana. And eventually Jadabharat is beginning to explain about the nature and power of the mind. And today we could see about atomic theory, and particularly the flaw of science starting at an intermediate point. What is the flaw in that? And ultimately about the Vedic paradigm, which offers us an opportunity to be grateful to the Supreme Person. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yes, give the Nobel Prize to God. Wanting to punish.
Hare Krishna, devotees, it was very nice lecture, and Prabhu started, just to summarize in 1 or 2 minutes. So whatever I noted down. So Jadabharta was a self-realized soul. So even though Jadabharta was carrying the palanquin, he was thinking that he was trying to reduce the previous karma. So he was not blaming anything. So there Prabhu mentioned about why am I suffering. There are different ways of complaining and as a like inquiring. So spiritualists ask as inquiry, why am I suffering, and others they ask as say as a complaint. So exalted devotees are very grateful even in difficulty times. So because they are grateful, they are always happy. So then talked about Raghunath came down from the palanquin and inquiring in the form of a Krishna Sevaya mood. And then, so in the Bhagavata, Krishna also started speaking with Arjuna's with the chastisement. So here also Jadabharat started with the chastisement. And then the how to train the mind. Prabhu talked about like the weapon of training the mind is to service to the Guru and Krishna. So a genuine teacher is concerned about subject matter in whether the student understood properly or not. Even he is ready to repeat. So then at the end of Bhagavad also Krishna asked Arjuna whether he needs to repeat. So Srila Prabhupada was asked about who is the Lord Chaitanya when Srila Prabhupada talked about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 10 days. So still like Sri Prabhupada said, very good, very nice question, and then started explaining. And also Prabhu mentioned about when Radhana Somaras went to see the Janivas Prabhu was in hospital. So Janivas Prabhu wanted to hear again from Radhana Somaras. So again Maharaj repeated for 4 hours, which he gave in the festival the same day morning, 4 hours. So Jadavarta says that we come from the dust and enter into the dust at the end. So this is to highlight that okay, this is the temporary nature. And then Prabhu talked about Big Bang theory, atomic theory, steady state theory. So all these things like perennial expansion is going on, but what is the source? And this thing like how with explanation of all these things, Prabhu told science starts at the intermediate point. So whether it is life comes from matter, but what is the source of the matter? Material world is formed from the atoms, but what is the source of the atoms? So all these things, there are no question. I mean, no proof. So it start everything science starts from the intermediate stage, and even assume like okay, metal world is the source. I mean, the source is the atoms. Then how did the atoms coming together and making this wonderful harmonious nature? So no answers again. So then Prabhu talked about how the mother nature mixes the atoms such a way that everything is in order, starting from microscopic level to the macroscopic level. So on the provider of that those ingredients are the father. So creation does not happen without the touch of life. So then Prabhu talked about the disadvantages of accepting science starts at the intermediate level. Like basically from the this thing is that first is the one is the ignorant of the root cause. Second is the distorted understanding with the examples Prabhu has given very nice. And then third one is the undue credit. And the fourth one actually remains ungrateful. So that's what the science wants now. So if start at atoms, so where is the gratitude? So I mean, there will not be gratitude to the atoms, right? So it is the undue credit to the atoms. So providing the like Prabhu talked about one patient during pandemic getting the oxygen for 1 day and with a fat bill at the end. So he was crying, saying like how much I breathed the oxygen for my life, but and I not paid anything to the Lord. How much should I pay? Then Prabhu said, like, science is about the sensory perception, and a spiritualist inquires from the authoritative source to get the authoritative knowledge. So, whatever, so like Bijam Mam, Sarvabhutanam, or Aham Sarvam, uh, like Bija Pitama. So, Krishna is the source of everything. Then it also talked about the Vedic paradigm. So, it just says who created, but it also talks about how it is created and what is the intention, like why it is created. So these three questions are answered in the Vedic paradigm. And then Prabhu talked about how this creation came from the Mahavishnu, of which the diameter, like the universe of this diameter, Prabhu talked about 45 lakh kilometer, and then the first covering is 80 lakh, then 10 times. So similar to that, like seven coverings are there. So then Prabhu talked about how the Vishnu pervaded everywhere in the atoms and between atoms also. Uh, and then why the this world is created? That is to fulfill the unnatural desires of the living entities. And instead of then Prabhu talked about so let us improve the quality of life and get out of this material world, motor world, and how to take and Prabhu talked about like with kirtans and all those things, Ravana Kirtanam and all those. And at the end, Prabhu talked about by having the darshan of the Lord Jagannath. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And if any other devotees wants to share in the, I just unmuted. Are there any other things that I missed out? Sorry, devotees, at the end, like I had to change because not able to reach the speaker. Beg forgiveness for that. So, any other devotees wants to share?
Prabhuji nicely shared about how somebody asks in between to summarize or any simple question of what has been spoken about. Prabhuji said the speaker will relish that opportunity or they will speak about it in a greater detail. Of course, Prabhuji gave us the example as well of Maharaj speaking for 4 hours. So that's a one very wonderful point which Prabhuji brought there. And also to prove the point about the scientists making about everything comes from atoms, Prabhuji gave how that is not correct. Multiple examples regarding the train, multiple example about how the child goes and complains to his mother. So Prabhuji made very, very wonderful analogies to make us understand the concepts. Thank you
Yes.
for wonderful lecture, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Great. So, any other devotees?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. Thanks for the wonderful audio, Prabhu. You gave so many analogies, especially that the intermediate point, Prabhu, could relate to so many things. And also the spiritual master having that objective that the student only understands and is able to repeat so many times.
Well, understand so that like he gets transformed.
Yes, Prabhu, understand and transform. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Okay.
And for
Hare
your
Krishna Prabhu. Dandavat Pranams. Thank you for the wonderful audio, Prabhu. So the Vaishnava qualities are highlighted here, Prabhu. The tolerance and the humility to repeat it
Yes.
as many times as possible. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So, any other devotees? Okay, we can end the class here with Vaishnava Pranama. Pancha kalpatarubhesha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaः. अनंतकोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंद।
Hare Hare Bolu.
Anything you want to say, Prabhuji? Bhasham Prabhuji?
No, Prabhuji, next I said Hare Hare Bol, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna. No,
Hare
any
Hare.